Boston Red Sox drop the series finale to the Houston Astros, a score of 4-1. A Buehler-Brown matchup should not have felt so close as it did, and despite 2 home runs from the Astros, ultimately Buehler settled in. The offense couldn't find its rhythm, however, and unfortunately the Boston Red Sox fall to 66-56 on the season. I'm Nick the Voice, joined by Terry Cushman Jr. and Chris Felico, and we are the Bastards of Boston. Want more? Go to bastardsofbostonbaseball.com for great written articles. Now, let's start with the man himself, Walker Buehler, who has been continuing this strange trend of first inning blowups. It was another one tonight. He immediately got himself into trouble. Walker, of course, walking plenty, and it bit him. He settled down nicely, and then I don't know if I saw some people say that they felt that he was left in the game too long. It's really tough. It's a really tough situation because ultimately to give up 4 runs, and I think it was 4 hits, it's just a tough situation. What did you guys think?
Chris?
Yeah, I mean, hindsight's 2020. It's easy to say that we left him in too long. I felt like in the moment, it was the right decision to keep him in there. Obviously, the 2-out walk, which has plagued the pitching staff, it's not just Walker Buehler. It seems like every 2-out walk that we issue turns into a 2-run home run at this point for every pitcher. So you're not going to pull him out in that moment, right, over a walk. I mean, he was doing pretty well. He settled in. Yeah, he got roughed up a little bit in that first inning, which was a little discouraging. But, I mean, I'm not going to pin this game on Walker Buehler. He gave a better start than I think most of us would have anticipated, despite the fact that he's been our best pitcher over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, as far as a game. I said it in the war room last night. I said we were going to lose this game probably 2-0, leave a bunch of ducks on the pond. It's exactly what we did. Not the 2-0 part, although it looked like it was going to be a 2-1 game for a bit. I mean, we left probably, I think I said it was going to be 8 guys in runner scoring position. It might have been damn close. Which was super frustrating. I mean, you had Wong, Rafaela, and I think it was Gonzalez trading off who was going to hit in the next double play. Our 1 through 4 hitter went 1 for 15. I mean, when your first 4 hitters go 1 for 15, you're not winning many games. We are lucky it was only 4-1 and that we had plenty of opportunities to tie this game and even take the lead at some points.
Man, I'm just all over the road here with my thoughts on it. When you see, as you guys mentioned, when you see Buehler versus Brown, and Brown pitched a 7-inning gem against you the previous week, the Astros lost that game 2-1, but he did everything he could do to keep his team in that game. And then essentially the same thing tonight. And so that's a scheduled loss almost. And for 87 pitches into the 6th inning, Buehler looked good at times. He kind of skated other times. When you got 4 walks on your line, that's not good. And you're probably lucky you only gave up 2. But like I said, for 87 pitches, he looked okay and he kept us in the game. And then on the 88th pitch, 2-run shot, Yainer Diaz. So, it sort of took the game out. Brown had that balk with Duran, and it looked like, maybe that could spark something. Maybe that could knock him off the rails a little bit, and maybe the Red Sox could pull stuff together. And then finally, when Abreu came in, I think didn't we tattoo him in at least one of those games last week? I thought we tuned him up pretty good. And he had 2 runners on, no outs, got a very timely double play. And it was a bit of an adventure, but he ended up getting the out. And I'm not sure why they went to Refsnyder there in that last spot. I mean, it was a righty-righty matchup, and you want righty-lefty for Refsnyder. So not sure. Alex Cora was ejected. I don't know if we're clear on that. If it was 2 innings after the balk, so it's like, it would have been weird if that was it. It was just eating at him, and he's like, let me go get ejected now, 2 innings later.
I
But
feel like
yeah,
he does that sometimes though, when like he doesn't get a call his way or argues or he doesn't like the way a game's going. It'll be like an inning or two later and he'll get himself thrown out.
Yeah, I am interested in hearing more about that ejection because you're right. It was, I believe, the next inning, and I saw the footage of it. He was going at it again with the home plate umpire, and then he's walking away back to the dugout, and then he just turned around and had to get one more word in, and that's what got him ejected. So I don't know if he was trying to light a fire under the team, if he was going out there purposefully trying to get thrown out. Maybe that was his mindset, but it was a very odd situation, especially when you go back, you look at the balk, and the situation was that Brown had balked previously. And then, according to Hudson, according to Duran, according to Cora, all three of them seemed to jump again and act as if Brown had balked in a run. And I went back and I watched the replay several times over. And I listened to Will Fleming on the radio too. We couldn't spot where it was. It did not look like he balked in a run. The first balk I thought was well called. It was pretty obvious. The second one, I really don't think was present. So it's kind of a strange thing to not only get thrown out for, but get thrown out an inning later for.
it's weird that there like multiple players or staff members, coaches on the field wanted the balk. So my first reaction was, okay, well, he must have done something. If they're all pouncing on it and they all allegedly saw the same thing, there must have been something. Like you said, Nick, I didn't notice anything. I think the Nesson crew might have nitpicked something that was super minor, and it wasn't like an obvious thing. And I just asked myself, I'm like, where's the anxiety coming from? Like, there's anxiety right now on this team, and the Marlins are pesky. So, I mean, you should win 2 out of 3. If it's worse than that, then that's not going to be good. But you do have a very weak schedule. Most of the teams you're facing, with the exception of a couple, are not playoff teams. The month of September is very weak, and the Yankees, I'm calling them not a playoff team. They're sinking like a rock. Maybe this might be the year Boone finally gets fired. I think Cashman needs to be fired with him. If Steinbrenner's smart, he's seeing what the Red Sox are onto, and he's like, maybe it's time. But anyway, back to the anxiety thing real quick, though. That's how quickly I go off the rails. But I just wonder, the one thing in the back of my mind is we've only won one game since the laptop controversy. And that's not really a controversy, but I think because the camera caught it, I think teams are super cognizant now that maybe the Red Sox are locked in on something, and now we have to really tighten it up. And so I don't know. I don't know if that's it, but where's the anxiety come from? That's my only thing. Why did Cora feel so compelled to get tossed? Clearly it was eating at him, and maybe he was trying to fire up the team like you guys said, but I don't know.
Well, I think I agree with you. I mean, it could be something to do with the laptop, but I also think in that same timeline, if you think about the games they've lost, it's all been almost the same way, right? We're in it. We're only a couple of runs down. We have plenty of opportunities to score. And you start to feel the pressure of like, okay, we're going to get ducks on the pond, but they're not going to come home. No matter what we do, we're going to strike out. We're not going to put the ball in play. And there's only so many times you could see that story without getting frustrated. And that's why I also think the balk was eating at him so much, because I agree with you, Terry. It was odd. I saw a little bit of a flinch and then a pause with the guy's shin, but I didn't necessarily think it was, I didn't know if it was a balk. But the fact that the first base coach, the third base coach, and Duran and Cora are all screaming, I'm like, I don't think they're all conspiring. I mean, I've seen crazier things, but the fact that they all were, there might have been something there. But it just speaks to, like, they were so desperate. Like, they knew Duran was not coming home unless it was a wild pitch or they got that balk. That's what I truly believe. And sure as hell, he didn't come home. And then the next inning, they ended up getting 2 more runs. And to the Sox credit, because I had to be honest, as soon as they got that 2-run home run, I'm like, oh, 4-1 game's over. They got the next 2 innings back in a position to tie the game, and they didn't get any runs. But I mean, it was nice to kind of see a little bit of fight. But again, it speaks to it's the same problem. They're not getting runs across unless there's these football scores.
Yeah, it really does make the run differential look a lot nicer than it sometimes is. You know, the Red Sox have had a lot of blowout victories, a lot of blowout losses, not as many, of course, but we have so many games where the offense just seems to disappear all at once. And like you mentioned, Chris, when the top of your order goes as badly as it does, it's not a good sign. You can't rely on your, 6 through 9, especially when Connor Wong's in the lineup. He did get a hit tonight. He's been a little better lately. Of course, we did have that pinch hit for him. That was interesting, Terry, that you noted that Ref Snyder went in despite it being a right-handed pitcher, Abreu, on the mound. It could speak to Narvaez's knee, I suppose. They are carrying 3 catchers right now. The only reason they would do that, as far as I'm concerned, is the fact that they're afraid that Narvaez may be nagged. He might be good for half a game, but at any moment he could come out and say, hey, to the trainer, hey, I'm really bugged right now. Can you, sub me out for someone? It was very interesting, though, that we saw Romy get the start at first base rather than Toro versus a righty, because Romy is not him versus right-handed pitching typically. And I know he had 2 hits tonight. I forget which pitchers it was off of. I don't think he did anything versus Brown. He might have gotten 1 hit off of Brown towards the end, but he came up in 2 big situations versus Brown. And sure enough, a perfect, point in case here. The second inning, he comes up 2 men on, no outs. And I think it was the first pitch he jumps on and grounds into a double play, completely kills our momentum. It's just brutal stuff to watch. When we got to the 9th inning, again, Yoshida, loved to see a hit. Romy did get a single to his credit. Wilyer Abreu and Ceddanne Rafaela came up, and they were clearly swinging for the fences. And I get it because they are the tying run, but this team just doesn't seem to have a lot of faith in the guy behind them sometimes. You get guys who are going for that home run or bust approach. And of course, there wasn't much that Rafaela or even Abreu, you could say, could do. Abreu on the mound, not Wilyer, was throwing 100, really nice looking pitch selection. But I mean, Abreu, very confusing. Wilyer, he just was not very selective of the pitches, and that was frustrating to watch, honestly. I thought that maybe they could have had a chance to come back into it. Rob Refsnyder had himself in a favorable count, and then, unfortunately, he struck out on a slider low, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, the pitcher, I mean, he was throwing heat, but he was kind of a little bit wild. He wasn't hitting all of his marks, and honestly, like Abreu, the hitter, the first pitch was like almost at his chin inside, and he was swinging for the fences. So, I mean, forget about poor approaches. Some of them just didn't have an approach. To your point, they were all coming out swinging for the fences, trying to tie the game, take the lead, and it's like all they had to do was just keep it moving, keep the lineup moving, and they all wanted to be hero. And I agree. I don't think anyone trusts the guy behind him right now.
With Abreu,
which one?
Our guy, Wilyer. As far as this winter goes, is his value ever going to be higher, do we think, in future winters? Or is this the time to finally trade him? Because I would do it. I think this is who he is. I think getting him to hit against lefties, I think that ship has kind of sailed at this point. And so he is a platoon guy. And I think we've got enough talent in the pipeline to not necessarily need a Wilyer type guy and to be able to get a decent piece back.
Yeah, I can see the appeal to trading Abreu. I sort of feel like as the season's gone on, especially post All-Star break, I feel like he's been putting up better at bats versus lefties than we saw in the first half for sure. He's still only 26. There's the Gold Glove defense out in right field. It's just a tough a tough call to trade a player like that, but we need to trade someone. It's either going to be him or Duran. Just like we were speculating earlier this year, it's going to be the same speculation in winter. It's going to be one or the other. Abreu is a streaky guy, no doubt about it. The guy likes to swing for the fences, and it's a shame too, because I feel over the past couple of weeks, there have been moments where he has shown the capability of going into that batter's box with a different mindset. And when he does, it almost seems like he's a better player then, you know? I think the biggest problem though with trading Abreu is you are once more trading away our big power bat. And this team is seriously lacking power.
Yeah, to answer your question, Terry, there's not going to be a time where his value is going to be higher. Not now. If the team was struggling more and there was more question marks about the future and their validity as a potential playoff team going forward, I would say hold on to him. The fact that we seem to be, quote unquote, possibly more ahead of schedule than we thought maybe earlier in the season, I think that out of him and Duran, because let's face it, it's always going to come down, is it him or Duran that gets moved? I think you hold on to Duran because even though long-term his skill sets are probably going to be lessened much more quickly because of age and the things that he brings as far as his attributes with speed that will diminish much more quickly. He's more suited for a team that's built to win now, and the Sox are probably closer to that with the right maneuvers. To answer your question, Nick, or your point, I agree getting rid of him with the power situation would not be ideal, but we also have to figure that if the Sox are serious and they're going to really like try and take that next step forward, they got to utilize the money that they have, whether it's coming off the books or the money they've saved from Devers, and go out there and get real hitters and bring in that right-handed power bat. And if you're able to do that, then, I mean, we don't miss Abreu as much. And, you know, when I really look at Abreu, yes, he's streaky. He runs into a ton of home runs, especially when he's a pinch hitter coming in. There's a lot of times, though, that I've looked this season, he's coming in, he's hitting home runs in games that are blowouts. So, like, a perfect example is yesterday. He hits a home run. Like, the game was already out of hand. I could think I can count on one hand or on a couple of fingers where maybe he came in and really had an impactful home run. One of them I actually do think was against the Astros in the series at Fenway. But, again, he's a good player. He's a good platoon guy. But with this team really need to take the next step forward, I think you're going to have to move someone. He's the guy I would move.
You could wait till next year's deadline to do it, and that gives you a chance to maybe ease a guy like the password in. And let me say one other thing. I'm not going to be a big fan going forward of having rookies make their debut on opening day. I think they should always start in the minors, always get a rhythm going, and then call them up. Because if they're on that opening day lineup, I just think that's a world of pressure. That's like, okay, you're on this lineup right now because you are our guy. You're the guy. Here you go. And I think with Campbell, it was too much. It was too much pressure. And so if you wait to trade Abreu, at the deadline next year, it affords you the opportunity to ease those guys in, and perhaps maybe someone else will emerge. Maybe you'll have an acquisition this winter that just really catches lightning in a bottle, and now they're the solution. But the conundrum is, do you want to do it while his value is as high as it can possibly be? And I think that's going to be this winter. And I'm not sold that he's a guy you can rely on. He's too streaky for me, and he's too one-dimensional.
That was going to be my devil's advocate point, Terry, is that I think if you wait till the deadline, that's such a gamble, because if he's on one of his cold streaks going into the trade deadline next year, his value, like, it could diminish compared to the offseason where I think it's going to be at its highest point.
Instead of the first piece in the trade package, he's the second or third piece, possibly. And that's not what you want.
Yeah, I don't know if I would necessarily call him one-dimensional, because he does have the power. He has achieved a pretty good walk rate for himself, And you still do have that brilliant defense out in right field that you can rely on. And that's been a factor defensively that Duran has been very questionable on so far this year. Having a potential outfield where Anthony right now is doing quite well in the outfield, having a potential outfield next year of Anthony Rafaela at his natural position, a sure in for Gold Glove this year until he got moved over to second base, and Wilyer Abreu in right field, you have a 2, maybe even 3 Gold Glove tier defense out in the outfield. That being said, one guy that we're sort of assuming is going to be on the team, I think the best case scenario is that we hang on to both of these guys and maybe Masataka Yoshida heats up to such a degree that we can eat some of the money and get out of a portion of the next 2 years of him, because he really does seem redundant at this point. And really the only reason we're feeling so much pressure to have either Duran or Wilyer Abreu removed is because Masataka Yoshida is your everyday DH.
Well, 2 things real quick. So with the Abreu thing, maybe I was a little unfair, but he's not a good situational hitter. And I guess that's where my problem is. He's a grip it and rip it type guy. He does draw walks, which is fair. He does. But so I guess that's my chief complaint with Abreu. I would just like to see him be better situationally. And then secondly, I was going to bring this point up earlier with Yoshida. And the painful thing about having him is that would be a great spot for Narvaez right now while he's trying to get the knee thing sorted out. And I think he can hit, but can he squat behind the mound for 9 innings? That's the hard thing. So I just think that's where Yoshida just continues to be a curse as far as the roster construction goes.
Well, to be honest, whether we're talking about Abreu or anyone getting traded out of the outfield, to be honest, we're not in a position to really entertain that until we shore up the infield, because unless we can get Cedon Rafaela back to the outfield where he belongs, he's a Gold Glover and one of the best. I mean, ideally what you want is, and I don't want this to sound terrible, you want Roman Anthony being your worst defensive outfielder, which he would be if you had Rafael out there and anyone else, maybe with the exception of Duran. But even then, I mean, they're about the same at this point, at least in my book. But we need to get a first baseman, and we need to lock up Bregman or have a solution to replace him. And then his second baseman, I mean, is it going to be Campbell? Is Campbell going to be packaged in a deal? I mean, there's realistically, we have a shortstop. That's about it.
I was just about to tell you, your only guaranteed infielder next year is Trevor Story. And I don't love that. He's kind of cooled off, and I'm going to keep going to the laptop thing until they get hot again. And unfortunately, we don't really have great pitching staffs in front of us going forward. But to really dispel that, but Duran's the only guy. If you can guarantee me right now that Bregman's coming back, and I would be fine. I mean, I think Rafaela needs to be in the outfield if he's made some good infield plays, but from an offensive production standpoint, if he's one of your infielders, okay, now you got Bregman, Story, and Rafaela. So it's just first base, and is it Campbell again? And it might be. I don't know. And I guess I wouldn't be sad if it is. I mean, that could be an ugly. Not that $68 million is a lot of money, but it is spread out over 8 years, and so I hope it's not a total waste.
Yeah, Campbell. The contract situation is nice so long as he can even be an average bat, because he's a utility guy, right? Ultimately, funnily enough, we sort of signed Cedon Rafaela to a utility man's contract, expecting him to be a super utility. And instead, he erupted not only defensively, but offensively this year in the outfield. When it comes to Campbell, you got to hope that the floor is a guy who can sort of sub in first base, second base, left field, right field, center in a pinch, almost like a Brock Holt type of guy, just maybe not as much enthusiasm. But, I liked what you said, Terry, about keeping the rookies down at the start of the year, not giving them that opening day. And I think that that's really important, especially for guys like Christian Campbell, who, when you look at their numbers, he was only, I think, 22 or 23 when he debuted for us. And up until that point, throughout his entire minor league career, going back to age 20, he had never struggled at a single level. to come up and face major league pitching without a serious skid where you look yourself in the mirror and say, what am I doing wrong? That can shake a guy. And I think we saw that with Campbell. Hopefully, we've been seeing what he's been doing down in AAA this year. As of right now, he's actually slashing 280, 408, 441 down in AAA in 174 plate appearances. I've been seeing some confidence in him. He's hitting home runs. He had that hit streak going on. I think it was up to 15 games or so last time I checked in. Really, really need that guy to step in because aside from him, as I mentioned a couple nights ago, your first baseman is Tristan Casas. And that is not a guy that I want to pencil in for a full season because not only has he struggled this year when he was playing, he struggles to stay healthy any year. And that's a hard thing to rely on, right? They say the best ability is availability, and Tristan Casas has not been available.
Tristan Casas needs to be like sent to Japan or something. I don't ever want to see him playing first base or behind the plate or at the plate for the Red Sox. I know we will, but I don't want to see it. Scary thought. I was just looking at a comment here from Brad, who's one of our regulars. Story can opt out. How crazy would it be if we literally have no infield? And I'm not saying he will, but if there was a year on this Red Sox contract where he would think about it, this would be the year because this is his best offensive production by far. He's not injured, and he's been playing pretty good defense.
I'll say it right now. Let me get his age up. I think next year is going to be his third.
He's 32.
Oh, he's 32. So next year will be his age 33 season. But he's got 50 million remaining. So what's the market for a guy like Story? I don't think it exceeds 50 million. 3 years. I think 3 years, 45 million would be tops for a team to give him 15 million a year. He's not, even though he had that hot run and it's since cooled off. I mean, he's still, this wasn't a $25 million a year performance. So I just don't see any scenario where Trevor Story, whatever deal he gets, outperforms the remaining money. If he had one more year remaining, I would say, okay, more likely than not, he'll opt out because he'll get a 2 or 3 year deal that will exceed the remaining money, but it's not gonna, it won't happen. I would be shocked. It would be the biggest blunder for an agent to advise him to opt out.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the only point sort of leaning it towards a probable outcome, which I don't think it's probable, but the only point for it you could think is that in general, the offensive free agent market is pretty weak. Therefore, maybe he could see a situation. Oh yeah, I'll sign something until I'm 38. But I agree, he's got 50 million or 55 million more on the books. 2028 is a $25 million team option, which I would imagine we probably opt out of, but it depends on a lot. It's hard to look that far into the future. It's going to be very circumstantial, of course.
We've got a million shortstops in the system. That Arias guy, I don't see us picking up that deal. But yeah, so it's going to be interesting. And I'm not a Breslow guy. I hope he gets canned. I don't know. I think we're a playoff team. The schedule's too weak. I don't see how we blow this. The Rangers, the Royals, and one other team would have to get really hot to knock us out. It'd be one of those years where 90 or 91 doesn't even get you in. That would be the type of situation. But I think his deadline performance of getting Matz and Dustin May, it falls short of what we needed. And it just would have been so good to get Suarez because if you could have extended him, the ultimate insurance policy if Bregman does walk. And I don't think we're bringing Bregman back. I really don't. Really? If Breslow keeps his job, I don't see a scenario where they take a smart contract and then make it stupid. I don't see that.
So if they don't sign Bregman, what do you think they do?
They would have to get someone. I mean, I hope we don't get this Marcelo Meyer, he's the third baseman propaganda, because that could happen. I hope he's in a deal this year. I mean, isn't Marcelo Meyer Tristan Casas 2.0? Like, the injuries just aren't nearly as catastrophic, but
I'm definitely not willing to go that far, but just because Meyer can actually play defense so far as we've
he
seen.
can,
but
but just the durability is just. I mean, that dude is off. I think I said it on the last show. How can he sit there? Look at the deal that Campbell signed, and then the deal that what's his name there, Roman Anthony signed. That was twice as much, and has the chance to be almost 3 or 4 times as much if all the escalators hit. I think it's partially a toughness thing. Like, he's just got to find a way to tough it out, and and maybe with the back thing last year, back injuries that's concerning to me. You missed.
They're debilitating back injuries.
So I don't have a ton of it's impossible for me to be confident that Meyer's going to give you a full productive season.
Yeah, Meyer scares me. He's, as far as from a durability standpoint, he's at this point a more likable version of Tristan Casas. Definitely more talented. Definitely better defensively. I would take him on one leg over Tristan Casas at this point. But yeah, I mean, ideally, if he recovers and it's not like a major surgery thing, because I think if you get surgery involved, there's no way he's going to be tradable. That's till he comes back and shows something. But if it's not, I wouldn't be shocked to see him in a package. It's crazy to think, like, we're a team that's on the precipice of playoffs with so many question marks and so many people that have been on this team in the starting lineup that could be on the trade market. Like, think about it. I mean, if Casas was even remotely healthy, he'd be back on the talks. You've got Masataka Yoshida, you got Christian Campbell, you got Abreu, Duran, Mayer. If it's not serious, it's like it's 2/3 of our lineup potentially on the trade market as a playoff team potentially. It's pretty insane.
It is. It's very much a Theseus's ship type of situation, as every baseball team is, as every sports team is. You're always going to have a lot of musical chairs, but I agree. It does seem like the Red Sox, especially lately, have been playing musical chairs a lot more often. It's interesting. The one thing with Marcelo Meyer is he had that opportunity, we heard, to get that season-ending surgery, and he decided not to. So there is some hopes of a return, clearly, with both him and the training staff. We heard that he was actually playing catch on Monday, which is a very good sign. But, he has that cortisone shot they did in his wrist. That takes, I think, a couple days to kick in. He's been on the injured list since July 24th. Who's to know, really, how long it's going to take for him to feel better? Catch is one thing. Hitting, fielding, that's another. And again, with a guy like Yoshida, you can't use that DH spot. We were talking about Narvaez. We can't use that DH spot to, be a partial rehab for Meyer either. Just an all-around tough situation. In my mind, the Red Sox need to play the rest of this season, assuming Meyer is not going to be in the picture for the postseason. If he is, and that's just a happy surprise, I guess. But for right now, they have to figure out second base. They think that Rafaela is the answer. If Yoshida keeps on hitting, which he's been doing so far this month, then maybe he will be, but it's just a clunky roster in some ways. And when winter hits, we are going to see a lot of people leave, I imagine.
Yeah, we're not missing Meyer too much right now, but the future is ominous if you're expecting him to be a big part of it and he can't stay on the field. So, super random. I just want to put it into the universe. One guy, because I'm the Fire Breslow guy and I obsess about it all day, every day. One guy I covet, and he's a free agent at the end of the year. I posted in the War Room a handful of days ago, I think. Twins GM Derek Falvey. What I like about him is, and perhaps maybe it's not right to attribute the credit to him for this, and hope maybe it is. I don't know, but the Twins have had good pitching staffs. Trading for Pablo Lopez, who seemed to take a big step forward for a year or two and is still very serviceable. I'm surprised there wasn't much talk about him at the deadline. Joe Ryan, they got him before he debuted, brought him up. He's been not necessarily a Cy Young contender, but a top of the rotation type guy. Sonny Gray had some good years there. And then they have some good bullpen pieces, or have had good bullpen pieces in Griffin Jacks and Johan Duran. So he's a guy that seems to understand pitching or can identify people to bring onto his staff that understand pitching. So I don't know if we would really miss a step there. And I just think he's well respected, and he's unfortunately been a smaller to mid-market GM there in Minnesota. So I don't know. I just think it's intriguing to see what he would do in a big market.
I'm waiting for the day that Terry comes on and he's like, a guy I've really been coveting is the Chinucci Dragons GM. He's one of the best out there. That's the point Terry's at with Breslow. He's literally looking at Japanese GMs at this point to replace him. But in all seriousness, I don't want to say I'm a Breslow supporter. I'm down the middle on him. I think when I reflect on and look at where he was chosen and how we ended up with him, I think he's done an adequate enough job that I don't think he's going to get fired at this point. However, I'm all for upgrading. But with that being said, there's only one way I would ever upgrade over Breslow, and this is anyone. If the Red Sox are going to pivot and change the dynamic and shift the perception of the team where it's, all right, we're back to spending. We're back to being the Red Sox. If we're just going to get rid of him and stay the course and do more dog and pony show, I don't care. Like, the name doesn't matter to me. You could change the face, but if the dream behind it's going to stay the same, I don't want it. Like, just keep Breslow at that point.
I got 2 words for you. Quinn Priester.
Yeah, whatever the Brewers have done, I mean, I don't know if that says more about the Brewers pitching development lab or ours. I mean, that really is just one of those things. I mean, I know it says the most about the Pirates pitching development lab out of all 3 of us, but it is interesting. The deadlines have not been good for Breslow. I think he's probably going to get at least another year. We're looking to be a playoff team regardless. We're probably going to get into it. If we do that, he's going to get more leash. Hopefully he has another good winter. Last winter was pretty good. If he has another deadline like this, I mean, we'll see, right? Maybe May turns it all around. Maybe we unlock something that the Dodgers didn't see. Maybe Mott's continues being a good force for us in the pen. But not getting a hitter really does hurt this team, because rolling out Romy, and I'm sorry to bring it up again, but rolling out Romy at first base with a righty on the mound, I mean, that just shows a lack of depth. It really does. And what do you see tonight? I mean, again, 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position. That's despicable. It's absolutely crushing, especially when I tell you the Astros were 1 for 2 with runners in scoring position. All they needed was 2 long balls and some sloppy control. We couldn't do anything with 10 opportunities, or excuse me, we couldn't do anything with 9 out of 10 opportunities. That just sucks.
Yeah, and I didn't really get too much into Buehler like I wanted to, but just he was the reason we lost. He was the one who served those up, but it wasn't a terrible start. It certainly wasn't a step backwards. It was probably more of a step sidewards than anything. But just imagine how good you might feel about an October run if you could look into a crystal ball and say, you know what, Buehler's going to figure it out. He's going to be serviceable and he's not going to get killed. I mean, that kind of increases the optimism. And then what if May puts together a few more starts? I think Crochet, Bayo, Giolito are gonna be solid. Maybe they won't have quite the sustained run that they've had, but they're gonna be solid. So, so we'll see, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if any of those guys would, between May, Bueller, um, pan out going into October, I mean, that's huge for us, provided that Crochet, Giolito, and Bayo stay healthy and stay consistent. They've all had their hiccups, including Crochet at this point. And we have arms at the AAA level. We got Criswell. If one of these guys falls up, I mean, the showing he gave us, I didn't think he deserved to be sent down, but someone had to go down. He's in play. You've got, what is it? It's the guy we traded for, Kyle from
Kyle
the
Harrison.
Yeah. Even he's pitching well. So like that's a potential option as we go down, provided there's an injury or if Bueller just absolutely just gets blown up or one of them, Dustin May, gets blown up. So it's nice to know that we have options. But they've got to find cohesiveness though between the pitching and the hitting, because it's going to be our Achilles heel and it's going to put a nail in this coffin because we're going to go into a 3-game series. I see Twitter, oh, the Sox, they were 2-4 on the road, to be expected. They're going back to Fenway. Keep doing what we're doing. Guys, we're not going to be playing in Fenway in the first round because we are not getting the first wild card. That ship is already starting to sail. The Mariners will run away with it because by the time the Sox get to their quote-unquote get right team, which the Yankees are facing now, and the Blue Jays face when we could have taken advantage of them, by the time that happens, it's going to be out of reach. So best case scenario, we're going to be in Fenway, more than likely. Or I'm sorry, not at Fenway. And if we're not, I don't know what's going to happen. If you lose the Crochet start, we're playing 2 games, guys, and that's it.
I don't know how the playoff money works, but I hope we don't have any home games in the wild card round, just in case we lose. If we advance beyond that, then fair enough. Well, it'll be great for the podcast to finally have a deep playoff run. But if John Henry doesn't get any playoff money, that would be precious. That would be like the baseball karma god saying, "F you, pal."
Yeah, it's very true, though. I mean, 27-34 on the road now. It's just not good. That's something that needs to be figured out. We are loving Fenway. We're doing great in Fenway. We're playing the monster incredibly well to our advantage. And as soon as we leave, it really does seem like that magic leaves this team and we become very quickly a below 500 squad. And what I mentioned a couple nights ago, I'm pretty sure still holds true, is that on the road, we somehow have managed to have a positive run differential with now a 7-loss below 500 record on the road. It's just maddening. It really is. When it comes to the pitching, you mentioned Cooper, Criswell, and Harrison. I think Harrison's going to be a really interesting one. I like both of them. And if Walker does continue to struggle, especially now that he's starting to hit those pitching incentives, where he's getting $500,000 for every 2 starts he makes, I think I saw was quoted. We'll see what happens. I mean, I agree it's a step sideways for him. If you look at his ERA in July, it was 3.57. ERA this month, 3.86. Certainly hasn't felt that good. He's had, a couple only 4-inning starts. He's had a couple of big blow-ups, big hits, 9 hits just on August 2nd. He gave up with 3 walks. Only gave up 3 runs in that outing. So it is just one of those things where with Walker, it's every game. You don't know what you're going to get. You start to get good flashes like his last start. This start was okay. But for me, I mean, I wanted Cooper Criswell up here about a month ago. And we're getting to a point where Kyle Harrison, I'm pretty sure his last 3 starts have been pretty stellar down in AAA. He's learning his pitches and whatnot. Hopefully we do something, because unless May and Bueller both turn into something great, I mean, we're still questioning every 5th, maybe even 4th start. And that's a scary thing for a playoff team to be.
And with Harrison, I mean, Breslow needs a W somewhere in that Devers trade. You don't have the prospect anymore. Hicks, I don't know what you're going to do with that guy. He's owed $12.5 million the next 2 years, no options. You can't hide him. With Yoshida, you can kind of work it out. You're like, okay, let's just hope for the best. With a bullpen guy that you need to rely on, you can't hide him. You just
We got to hide him in a trade is what we have to do.
I just like, yeah, I don't.
Here's
you could-
Abreu and Hicks.
Yeah, yeah, just take X and you can have Abreu. Yeah, take Yoshida. We might throw Meyer in, but no, kidding.
And Casas.
But yeah, I don't. So we'll see.
Yeah. So with that, any final comments, or should we look at the matchups we have after a day off, starting on Friday, our series against the Marlins?
Let's see what it looks
take a
like.
look
And
at it.
We got Crochet and Giolito in there, so
Yeah, and Bayo. So we have the trio fighting for redemption, which actually gives me a lot of hope, I'll be honest. But I'll save my predictions until I read off the matchups. Now, first off, the one caveat I'll throw out is that none of the Marlins pitchers are set in stone yet. And so because of that, whenever that's the case, I sort of just go to like a betting website and see who the probable pitchers are through that to pull up 3 names. So on Friday, we have a 7:10 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time start. That will be Lucas Giolito on the mound for us. Very possibly it will be Sandy Alcantara for the Marlins, who has been having just a terrible year. A lot of people wanted him in our rotation. I said, no, thank you. And so far, that seems to have been a wise decision not to go for that guy because his second half hasn't been any better than his first. On Saturday, we have a 4:10 start. Brian Bayo will be pitching for us. Very possibly we will be seeing Cal Quantrill for the Marlins. And then on Sunday, we have a 1:35 p.m. start. Garrett Crochet takes the mound versus Jansen Junk, who is possibly one of my favorite names a pitcher has in the majors right now. How are we feeling about this series, guys? What are you looking for?
I'm looking for a sweep. If this team is going to like get rolling back on the path they were on, all of them should be upset with the way that they pitched the last outing for each of them. Yes, the Marlins are scrappy. They can put up runs. But if these guys are serious, they need to come out, I mean, absolutely just slicing and dicing and just look to just pound the strike zone against the Marlins and just take advantage of the fact that they're not a playoff team. They're not playing for anything. We are, and we need to take care of business. At minimum, 2 out of 3, but like we should be aiming for a sweep.
So interestingly, one of them was a makeup game, so that's why this is going to be wonky. But they just played a 5-game series with the Braves, dropped 4 of them, and the Braves have obviously a pretty good offense, even despite the bad year. They don't have a very good pitching staff due to the injuries, but if the Marlins were solid, they probably should have won at least a couple of those. Then they dropped 2 out of 3 against the Astros in the series before that. And then they opened up the month by sweeping the Yankees, I think for the first time in their franchise history. If it wasn't the first time, it was a couple decades long thing. I just remember it was historic for some reason. But I think that's more the Yankees than the Marlins in that case. So we're catching them at the right time. We got our best 3 pitchers. I'll say 2 out of 3 for the Red Sox. I don't know how it's going to be, but they do have guys that can hit. They've had a pesky lineup for a while. They seem to find guys that are serviceable and not good enough. Not good enough to quite make a playoff run. But
the Marlins are, I believe, wrapping up a little road trip where you mentioned the Braves series. They're currently playing the Guardians right now, and the Guardians have been playing some pretty decent baseball as well. So far, the Guardians took the first game 4-3. The Marlins took the second game just today 13-4. Not sure who they blew up in that one. They will be playing tomorrow, so we get a day off. The Marlins don't. Maybe that can be a factor just in terms of bullpen. Let's hope that the Marlins have a bad start, right, and have to sort of dig into their relief arms. As far as the pitching matchups go, I honestly, despite their shaky outings this last time through, I do think Giolito, Bayo, and Crochet, they're going to amp themselves up. They're going to go out there. They know that this is a tough lineup. What we know is that Sandy Alcantara, Cal Quantrill, and Jansen Junk are just not very good pitchers. I think out of all three of them, I mean, Quantrill's been okay lately. I glanced at the numbers. Jansen Junk has been having a pretty awful month so far. Neither of them like to walk guys, but we don't really like to get walked all that much. And if you think you're going to kill us in the zone, you're just not. I'm going for a sweep here. I'm going to say the Red Sox are going to bounce back. We're going to put up a good series and hopefully right the ship before hosting Baltimore on Sunday or Monday, excuse me.
To answer your question about the Guardians, who they got blown up today, Gavin Williams has been having a pretty solid year, but he gave up 4 runs. And then they had a reliever give up 5. So that's mostly what did it. But we'll see. I don't. It's hard for me to really have a strong take here. You don't see the Marlins a lot, and I guess seeing Alcantara pitch, I mean, I think he can salvage his career at some point, and I'm glad we didn't trade for him because it wouldn't have really been a move for 2025. It would have been a move for the future, but we want to win now, so we'll see. But I think it'll be an interesting series.
Definitely, and hopefully one to get right. So thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been a good discussion following a pretty miserable game. I mean, who would have guessed that Buehler and Brown would have had us in the 9th inning rooting for a comeback? Really, I was like resigned to losing this game, and somehow this team keeps finding ways to sort of reel me back in and give me hope. Hopefully versus the Marlins in a day off, we will be able to get back into this wild card race. We'll see what our rivals keep doing. If the Mariners keep on their surge, they could very well be ahead of Houston by this time in a few days. So who knows? I've been Nick, joined by Terry and Chris. We have been the Bastards of Boston. Thank you so much for listening.